Kia ora, welcome to At a Loss, a series of conversations about grief and also about living fully when death makes itself present. My name's Timothy Giles, and I work as a funeral celebrant, which often gives me access to people who have really worked through what for many of us is a very challenging part of life. And I look to bring those conversations here. But today is a little bit different. We'd done our conversation, Aston, right? We did it. We talked about your grief, your loss, coming to terms with it. So what do you want? Why are you here?
Look, to be fair, Giles, thank you for having me back. And what an amazing experience that was. Again, sort of going back to, you asked me what I sort of hoped came out of that chat. And what I hoped came out of that chat was exactly what I experienced, which was having a frank, honest, open conversation about something that had tremendously affected me and my life, and being able to kind of talk through the whole story with someone I trust and with someone I love was an amazing experience. And that was all well and good, but in the time since we last saw each other, I've been doing a lot of reflection on it, and as I was sort of thinking about things, I also remember a phone call about 6 years ago that I made, and that phone call was to you.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
I was made aware that you had just lost your brother, and I wanted to immediately pick up the phone and call you. And so I'm kind of here to hear your story. I didn't know Paul as well as you knew Shawnee, so it's probably a little bit different. But I would love to hear your own journey and what you went through.
Should we start with that phone call?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
Not exactly, no.
Do you remember? It was a beautiful phone call, man. You know, like, well, we met when you were 6 or 7 years old, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And now you're 30.
35.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes me the old bugger. And do you remember the intention behind that phone call?
Yeah, it was to see if you were right. It was to share. I guess it was to share something that I had an abundance of. As we discussed, Shawnee's passing created an immense reaction, and there was, even to this day, I still get people checking in on me. But when Mum mentioned this to me, she let me know. I just immediately wanted to reach out. It was more of a reaction, really. I just wanted to reach out and see, or I guess how you were. I know that sounds silly because it's not.
I don't think it sounds silly.
Really about that.
Here's what happened when I picked up the phone. I think it is about that. And I'd lost my brother, and I was devastated. He's my big brother, and for what was Paul when he died? I think 44, 45, and he was 2.5, 3 years older than me. And my whole life, he'd always been there. And the loss was quite confusing, unsettling, disconcerting, disorienting. And what was remarkable was that when I heard your voice on the phone, it's not like we'd seen each other much for a very long time, right?
No, I'd been forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What feels like forever for a young man. It wasn't that long for an old man. But the moment I heard your voice, I knew where you were coming from. And I knew the devastation that losing your brother had wreaked on your life. Never mind the lives of those around you who loved you and Sean, right? So I just got this moment where between you and I, it was a very powerful conversation where I didn't need to hide anything, explain anything, right? Actually, and it was very interesting in that I felt like you were my coach.
Yeah, it was raw. It was kind of, yeah.
And it was like, actually, it's going to be all right, right? Nothing about that was all right, in my mind. But when with you on the phone and I knew what you'd been through, I actually felt in that moment like I was held. I felt like for a moment I felt safe. And it was really interesting because why did I feel safe? Because you knew, right? And for me it was like, Aston can help me. Aston can explain this to me. You know? It was the most generous phone call. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. I just, it was, man, it's something that we share, very unfortunately. But at the same time, you know, fortunately in the sense that we do have this bond, you know, and we are able to have these conversations. And it has been 6 years since Paul passed, you know. I'm sure just like with the 10 years with Sean, it seems like it was yesterday. So I mean, look, to be fair, as I sort of said before, I didn't know Paul, unfortunately. Am I able to ask, you know, what your relationship was with Paul? You knew what my relationship was with Sean. You saw it, and
close ass.
you saw it, and
okay. So you guys were brothers and best friends and business partners, and right, you know, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
In our other episode. So you're interviewing me on this, right? You're asking the questions of me. Is that what we're doing?
As it so happens, yes.
That's the game.
I'm sitting in your chair.
You are sitting in my chair. So if I don't know if as you're listening to this, whether you've seen pictures of the studio, you know, 38 Airedale where we do this, but Aston's made me sit in the chair that's not my chair. Okay. So, sorry, what was your question? I was rambling. Were we close?
Yes.
Were
yes,
we close?
yes. I guess. Yeah, as I sort of said, you knew the bond, you saw the bond, you witnessed, you experienced and felt the bond that me and Sean shared.
I had no idea how close my brother and I were. Around the time of his funeral, and you know, he lived in Tauranga, 2 and a bit hours away from where I live, and there was a world of his, of hundreds of people who appeared who I didn't know. And so many people said to me, were you and Paul close? And I was saying, not really, you know? But a year later, 2 years later, something would happen in my life, in my day, something really great, you know? Or something really tough. Yeah. Or something when I felt a bit shit about myself, or how I'd behaved or not behaved, you know, or something I didn't understand. And I just would grab my phone. Yeah. This is 2 years after my brother died. I would grab my phone and I wouldn't even realise I'd done it. I had him on speed dial. So when people asked me, were you close? It had never occurred to me to wonder if my brother and I were close. And when I reflected on that time later, how instinctive a part of I didn't realise I rang him so much. I just had no idea, you know. It just, and I think that we were so. Is it close? Or, you know, this is a chair. This is my hair. My brother is there.
Yeah,
you know. And now he's not. And it had never occurred to me of living without brother. It just, you know, my father left when I was 2. I didn't meet him again till my mid-20s. Paul, we had different fathers. He didn't even meet his dad until he was in his early 30s, I think. And, you know, I didn't have a close relationship with our mother and with our stepfather. He was whānau for me. And, you know, we got three younger sisters from, you know, their father was Paul and my stepfather. And you know, that's a lovely thing. But just had always been there, right? And it amazes me. I'm sitting here talking to you, and a part of me is still confused that he's not there. It still doesn't make sense that he's not there.
No, it's a bond. Well, you sort of pointed out last time when I said that I still talk to Sean and I still ask him for things and I still thank him for things. It's a bond you take for granted. I think when they're here,
Completely.
Yeah. That immediate reaction to want to share things with the person that you're closest with, you, your brother, me, my brother. It's something that we completely took for granted.
Yeah.
And
It's instinctive.
Yeah, it's instinctive. Yes.
And it was so much instinctive that it just never occurred to me to analyse it. And so when someone asked me to, it's like, oh, I've never really thought about that. So if I've never thought about it, we're probably not that close.
Yeah, of course. So how long it took me? Look, it took me. I really blurred a long period of time out before I kind of came to grips with the fact that he really, really, truly wasn't there. Being sort of out of it most of the time, he could have been there. You know what I mean? Like it didn't matter. It was all very cloudy for me.
Do you mean drugs and alcohol, or do you mean emotional cloud? What?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Fueled by drugs and alcohol. I mean, that was, like I said, I had a suppression/expression relationship with drugs and alcohol. So regardless of what state of mind I was in, it was either doing one or the other.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I got to sort of explain my journey and the moment that I really sort of came to grips with it. For you, how has that been, if you don't mind me asking? And
well, I do mind you asking, but it would be extremely hypocritical of me not to answer, right, given that I normally sit in that chair. I'm struggling with the question. You're asking me, when did I actually conceptualize that he's actually not here? Is that what you mean?
I guess accept. And not to say that's
I'm not
putting
sure,
a nail in the coffin type
I'm
thing.
not sure that I accept it. I'm pissed off about it still, and I feel cheated. So here's the process that I went through right in the beginning. When I would get that punch to the groin, of going, oh, my brother's not here. He's dead. Was very disabling, and I found it difficult to function when that realization would hit me. So the way I managed that was I would force myself into thinking, instead of the loss, the grief, the anger, the resentment, the confusion, all those things. I would think, this hurts and this is unsettling because I loved my brother and my brother loved me, and that's not, everyone doesn't have that. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not given.
No.
So for me, it was that process of going, for my entire life up until the age of, I don't know, was it 40 odd, mid-40s, I had my brother. And so this hurts because I've always had this thing that to me is brilliant, like so good. So I would force my thinking to go from the pain to go, I'm really grateful, I'm really lucky. And I'd think about us as boys, and I'd think about him as a man, and I'd just think, my benchmark, I've done some pretty shitty things in my life, right? But my benchmark was that my brother would always say to me, "You're okay, buddy." And it didn't matter whether I'd got my first TV series that I was fronting, or, made some great, achievement that I was really proud of, or if I'd done something really shit, or I'd been excoriated in a magazine article for things I'd done, or I'd let someone down or destroyed a relationship with a beautiful woman, who didn't deserve all those shitty things that I do. Yeah. My brother would still say, "You're okay, buddy."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So to me, that measure of being okay, buddy, by the best man that I know, that's a thing of how lucky was I to have that for all those years. So I spent a long time, the unpleasant, unwanted realization, feeling, and consequences of that would land, and I would force myself through a mechanistic process of thinking and talking and physically turning my attention as well as internally turning to how lucky I am, how grateful I am, right?
Yeah.
And now what's happened a number of years on is the two are much closer together.
Yeah.
Right? Those moments of, right? And I think I reflected on it just recently where something was going on in my life that I was, finding difficult. And I just, it's ridiculous, isn't it, all these years later? I just swallowed my big brother, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't have him. But I made the choice to actually allow, I'm going to cry, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm going to miss him. And that's okay now. Well, I guess as I reflect on this, because, we don't talk about this stuff, do we? It's quite interesting being on this side of the conversation, right? Because talking to someone demonstrating this kind of emotion, socially we normally shut it down and it feels uncomfortable. So thank you. It's a rare experience. That now I'm able to be present to that feeling of the bereft and the anger and all those various feelings that there are, the frustration, the confusion, which are all in along wrapped up in this ball that often gets called sadness, right? But I can allow the expression of that now because it's not going to derail me.
Yeah.
I think, and I've just realised that as I talk to you, whereas up until quite recently, it felt like it would derail me.
In a way of excusing you to be able to do things, or act, like, speaking from my own experience, I found that that anger, the sadness, all of those really powerful and quite dark feelings, that real sort of internal pressure, that I found that I needed to escape it, as I mentioned before. And that was through a magnitude of vices. And just sort of following on from what you said, getting to that point where you can sit with that and sit with it, regardless of whether it's gratitude and being thankful for the happiness and for the joy that people bring to your life, or whether it's actually truly diving into the loss and the grief and the sadness around it all. It's a very, very powerful position to be in, I think, when you can actually just sit with it.
When it's no longer frightening.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, it's
threatening.
still frightening. It's still frightening, but I think you get to a stage where...
Is it still frightening for you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I always grew up bearing emotion.
Burying?
Burying.
Oh,
burying it.
Well, you were the big brother, right?
Yeah, so
You kind of had to. That's the big brother role.
Yeah, it was kind of it was an expectation. So I've been very, very good at that, but fighting that urge to do that has been my biggest struggle and has been my biggest revelation and freedom. To kind of then just be like, hey, Aston, you feel shit. That's okay, you know. And like you, that transition from the punch in the groin to, oh wow, I'm so grateful, is for me is automatic now. It's very, very swift. Do I still shed a tear by myself? Yes.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll do it because I feel I need that release at the time. I allow myself to do it. Does it feel incredibly unnatural? Absolutely.
The allowing the feeling.
Fuck yes, absolutely. I've never done it before. I've never allowed myself to do it before. So now I do, because I think it's something that he's given me the ability to do. You know, it's almost like a gift. It's a present. It's something he's left behind, and not that it's you know, it's not like a new car or anything, but
it's a shit gift you didn't want. Yeah. So that's a shit gift, but okay, it's the one I've got.
But hey, but also it allows us to have these conversations. You know,
Okay,
it opens, it takes you to a different level of emotional consciousness or emotional understanding of yourself, And I think that the blessing in that is being able to then sit there and offer support, or at least understanding, with those that may be coming to grips with it.
Here's something that you said when we talked recently, that when I asked you why did you, because you're a pretty private man, right? You know, and when you said, I want to come and talk about Sean, right? Your motivation for it, and also thank you for your, you know, generosity in terms of thinking that this At a Loss, you know, project is a worthwhile thing. He said, because talking about this, it like, and experiencing it, you realise that everyone has their thing, their experience of this. And for some, it's, you know, it's the loss of someone very close to them. For some, it's the loss of a dream. For some, it's the loss of employment. For some, it's the loss of a physicality or a capability or a mental cognitive, right? So whatever it is. And when I reflect on what you're saying about this gift that Paul left me, Shawnee left you, I don't want it. I'd rather have him back, thanks.
Yeah, of course.
But okay, here's the gift. And the gift is that awareness that what it feels like. And so I guess out of that comes an ability to judge a bit less.
Well, we all share it. We all share it. Like you said, there's varying degrees of loss, you know. We all share it, but it's something we don't want to talk about. You know, it makes you feel uncomfortable. People don't like to talk when they're feeling uncomfortable. I know I'm the worst at it. Absolutely, I shut down completely.
So you said you will shed a tear when you're on your own.
Yeah.
Right? You're in a long-term committed relationship, right?
Not with others. Not even with Mum. I don't think I've cried. You know, even when she's bawling her eyes out, I won't, because it's a position I've felt I've had to hold in my family, to be the rock, to be the strong person. And so, yeah, I mean, even at the funeral, I didn't cry.
I remember.
It's only when I got home by myself. Yeah, it's my cope. It's been my coping mechanism, and it's backfired a lot. But I accept it now, and I'm okay with getting to a point where if I do need to shed a tear, I allow myself to do it.
But still in private.
Yeah. And usually music influenced. I find music and stuff like that. I mean, to be honest, even watching even if it's the most silliest movie or TV show in the world, if someone experiences loss, I immediately am impacted by that. It's quite weird. It's quite weird, but it's just a completely internal thing, you know. It very rarely becomes external. Yeah. Start fidgeting. Looking for something to do. Huh?
Are you stuck on where to take the conversation?
I think so. I think I've just had a bit of a moment, to be honest. Mm-hmm. You know, having you share your experience and your grief, I think, has really, it's affected me.
How?
I feel it. I'm feeling it. I'm tingling.
Okay, let's talk through what it feels like. You waved your fingers around, right? You're tingling. What does it feel like physically?
Just like that, really. Like a tingling feeling, a sort of an uncomfortability. It's not an anxiousness. It's just a weird kind of tingling.
Okay. I notice my breath gets shorter. I feel like a constriction in my chest. That happens. Do you get that?
Not so much.
Okay.
No. I feel like if something's building. Okay. There's something building inside me right now. And my body's doing its best to fight it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a tension?
So that's probably what it is. It's the internal versus the external, trying to hold it all in, you know? It's a weird feeling. And I don't know if it's natural, you know? Because I think it's my own thing, you know?
What do you mean? Why it's natural? Is it not? Is the very fact that this is what you experience, doesn't that say to you, this is my natural reaction?
No, because I think that I've created this. I've created this feeling. I've created through the various moments of grief and dealing with things and whatever it might be, a shit score on an exam or my grandfather passing away. Yeah. It's a coping mechanism I've created. So therefore I don't feel it's natural.
So then you can change it if you want to,
which is the journey that I'm still on, I feel.
Do you know how you want to change it?
No, I don't give it much thought, But then again, that's the coping mechanism.
I think okay, hang on, maybe it's a coping mechanism, but it's also we don't give it much thought because we don't actually have these conversations, right?
No.
Like, I have had realizations because you insisted that I answer your question or sit in this conversation with you, right? And very often in conversation, we realize things. I certainly know for me. And one of my favorite words is dialogue, right? And dialogue is dia as in like diameter, D-I-A, to cut through, and log as in logos, truth. So dialogue is about cutting through to truth.
Yeah.
Together, right? That's what we're doing.
That's beautiful, yeah. Yeah, I like that. You use that word more often.
Well, there's a difference between that and conversation, right? Because conversation comes from the same kind of linguistic root as concuss, right? Knock back and forth. I don't want a concussive conversation. I want a dialogue moving through. All right, so you flip the script on me. We've got 4 minutes to go. What do you want to do to wrap? Where do we conclude this?
I think it's been really, really. These are the type of conversations that I actually do enjoy. Being made to feel sort of uncomfortable is something that I think as humans we need to feel, or else how do we persevere? How do we create resilience? How to it's really, really important, and that's kind of, I guess, leading on from the last conversation, that's what I do want to bring to the forefront, and now sitting here having felt and still sort of feeling that uncomfortability, it's now nice. It feels good.
So what does that feel like?
Good, just happy. Like I'm kind of I'm smiling.
Tingling's gone.
The tingling's gone. Yeah, almost not at peace. More excitement.
So maybe the thing that was welling up was actually a sense of ease potentially.
I think the sense of ease is now in place. But again, that's my body going through the transition of the build up then to the.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting to you is that in your transition of how you change your experience of is like when I feel impacted and I'm tingling and there's that that thing building, that actually the thing that's building could be the sense of ease if we do it right.
Yeah. And it's I think it's really important.
Well, I quite like that.
To reach out to people, I think, we're very lucky that we're in this position right now having this conversation. I think we're very fortunate. Not everyone has that opportunity, but, I highly recommend it. I think it's been a wonderful experience.
I'm going to sit with that idea, to loop back. I always ask people at the end of these conversations, what have you got out of this, right? And so thank you for what, here's what I've got out of it.
Well, I guess what have you got out of it, yeah.
Yeah, well.
That's how I should have finished it off.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
Is when I talked about it no longer feeling frightening, like it's not going to derail me, right? And now what you've coached me into is that the feeling that comes in my body around this and the constriction in my thinking and the limited options is that actually I now know that available to me as the outcome of this feeling of grief could potentially be ease that you've created for me here now, right? So rather than for me thinking about reaching out to anyone else, what I'm going to take away from this conversation is when I feel that onslaught, wave or assault, whatever the metaphor is of how grief arises suddenly, that for me actually what I'm going to hold of where I can get to on that is ease.
Yep.
And that finishes this for me.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's amazing.
Well, you coached me. This has been At a Loss, a series of conversations about living fully alongside grief and loss. And thank you, Aston, for, as you said, flipping the roles and putting me
flipping the script, huh?
Yeah, mate, I appreciate it. I'm going to wait for the ease to come now, I think.
Enjoy.